Before we begin tonight's story, I'd love for you to take a moment to support the channel. If you enjoy relaxing history like this, please give the video a like and subscribe so you'll always have a new story ready when you need to unwind. I'd also love to know, where in the world are you listening from tonight? Drop it in the comments below. It's always wonderful to see how far these sleepy journeys traveled. The first thing you notice is the cold. It creeps along the floorboards, seeps into the thin woolen blanket wrapped around your body, and brushes against your bare skin like a draft from some unseen crack in the walls. For a moment you lie still, breathing slowly, listening to the muffled rhythm of another woman's sleep from the bed beside you. The sound is steady, comforting in its own way, like a reminder that you are not entirely alone. The light is dimmed, that peculiar grey of a London morning. It slips through the narrow gap in the curtains, tracing faint patterns across the faded wallpaper. Once, years ago, the paper had been cheerful, clusters of roses and curling vines in soft pinks and greens. Now the colours are dulled, the edges lifting and peeling where dampness has eaten into the plaster beneath. The scent of mildew lingers faintly, mixed with something sharper, sweeter lavender water sprinkled on the sheets the night before. It is never enough to disguise the mustiness. You shift slightly, feeling the springs of the horsehair mattress protest beneath your weight. It is lumpy, uneven, and the thin blanket hardly protects you from the chill. Still, it is a bed, and that fact alone sets you apart from many outside these walls. London in 1857 is a city of immense wealth and grinding poverty, where men in silk hats walk past children who sleep huddled in doorways. Here, in this upstairs room of a brothel tucked into the Haymarket district, you at least have shelter. Beyond the walls, the city is already awake. You hear it in fragments, the clop of horses' hooves striking the cobblestones, the hollow rattle of cart wheels, the muffled shouts of traders setting up for the day. Somewhere in the distance a bread seller calls out his wares, the words carrying through the narrow lanes, echoing between tall brick buildings. The sound is strangely comforting, part of the rhythm of mornings here, part of the texture of life you have come to know so well. Slowly you sit up, the blanket sliding down to rest at your waist. The air is sharp against your skin, and you reach immediately for the woolen shawl draped over the bedpost. It smells faintly of smoke and perfumes, but when you pull it around your shoulders, it traps just enough warmth to ease the shiver that runs through you. The shawl, the mattress, the chipped basin on the table between the beds, these small, worn things are your worlds. On that same table rests a ceramic pitcher filled the night before with water. Thin ice clings to the surface, a reminder of how raw the London winters can be. You dip a finger into it, breaking the film with a brittle crack, and then splash your face. The shock of the cold steals your breath for a moment, your skin tingling as the water trickles down. You blink against the stings, but when the moment passes you feel more awake, more present in the day that has already begun to unfold. Your room is not large. It's 2 narrow beds, a shared table, a small chest for clothing, and a fireplace with little more than grey ash in the grate. Coal is expensive, rationed carefully, and fires are saved for evenings when the rooms are meant to appear warmer, more welcoming. In the mornings, there is only the cold. You look across at your roommate, her hair spilling across the pillow in tangled curls, her breathing still deep in sleep. She will wake soon enough, when footsteps in the hallway announce the beginning of the house's routines. Haymarket is no stranger to noise. By day it hums with life, markets, theatres, taverns spilling drinkers into the streets. By nights, it transforms, the lamps casting golden pools of light over alleys and doorways, the shadows filling with figures who whisper, laugh, or call out to passing men. The brothel where you live and work is not the grandest in the city, nor is it the lowest. It sits somewhere in between, a place where tradesmen, clerks, and the occasional wealthier patron come seeking what they cannot find at home. For you, this house has been life for nearly 2 years. 2 years of rooms like this, of women who arrive frightened or desperate and either settle into the rhythm or vanish before the month is out. You have seen both. Some girls moved upward into establishments where silk gowns and heavy drapes gave the illusion of gentility. Others slipped back into poverty, their health broken, their futures uncertain, and some never came back at all. The city has ways of swallowing people whole. This morning, though, you are still here. You breathe slowly, deeply, letting the shawl wrap you in its scratchy comforts. There is a strange peace in these moments before the house stirs. The silence between sounds, the stillness before the day begins, allows you to remember that you are more than the work you do at night. You are simply a woman in a small room, stretching her toes beneath a thin blanket, savoring the fragile warmth of a quiet breath. Your eyes wander again to the wallpaper, to the cracks in the plaster where damp has spread like dark veins. The brothel is aging, though it still holds itself upright, and in its where you find a strange kind of companionship. Just as the building persists despite weather and time, so too do you. You draw strength from the thought, leaning back against the wall, letting its solid presence press against your shoulders. Outside, a church bell tolls, marking the hour. You are not sure whether it is 5 or 6, the sound muffled and uncertain. Time in this life is elastic. The nights stretch long, the mornings are brief, and the days pass in a haze of waiting. But for now, time is not something you need to chase. All you need to do is sit quietly, listening to the city waking, breathing in the air that carries coal smoke, river mud, and the faint, bitter trace of perfumes drifting from the rooms below. This is where the story begins, not in the glamour of silk-draped parlors, not in the scandals whispered in drawing rooms, but here, in the cold light of morning, in the simple act of waking, stretching, and acknowledging the world around you. This is what it was to live, day by day, as one of London's forgotten women. And so, with shawl around your shoulders, and the weight of another day settling gently on your body, you let yourself breathe. You let yourself be still, and you begin. The city is already alive when you step to the window and push the curtain aside. Pale morning light washes across the rooftops, mingling with the smoky haze that hangs perpetually over London. The streets below are narrow, lined with brick buildings that lean slightly toward one another as though conspiring to shut out the sky. A faint mist lingers, carrying with it the smell of coal smoke, damp earth, and the sharp tang of horse manure. It is not a pleasant perfume, but it is the very scent of the Victorian city, dense, inescapable, and oddly grounding. You hear the clatter first, horses' hooves ringing against the cobblestones, iron-rimmed cartwheels jolting over uneven stones. The rhythm is broken and jarring, yet somehow steady like the pulse of the city itself. Each sound carries with it a hint of life. A drayman whistles to his horse, urging it forward. A woman selling watercress calls out, her cry rising above the murmur of other traders beginning their days. The voices overlap and echo caught between tall walls, giving the impression that London never truly sleeps. It only rests in uneasy shifts. Haymarket is waking in its own way. This district, known for its theatres and taverns, is a place of contrasts. At dawn it feels weary, like an actor before makeup, stripped of glamour and reduced to its bones. The wooden shutters of gin shops and coffee stalls creak open. Delivery boys hurry through alleys, balancing baskets filled with bread still warm from the ovens. The air holds the promise of food, faint yet tantalizing, reminding you how long it has been since your last proper meal. From your windows, you watch as figures emerge from doorways. Labourers with heavy boots and hunched shoulders make their way toward building sites and workshops. Women in plain woolen shawls walk briskly, some carrying laundry baskets, others balancing bundles on their heads with practiced ease. A sweet boy darts between them, his face smudged with soot even at this early hour, a broom nearly as tall as himself, clutched in his hands. These are the workers of London, the quiet machinery that keeps the city alive while its wealthier citizens still lie in feather beds. A church bell tolls in the distance, its deep sound rolling across the rooftops. For some, it signals the beginning of worship. For others, it is simply a measure of time, a marker of the hours spent in toil. For you, it is a reminder that night is over, and another day stretches before you in the uneasy pause between evening's work and morning's exhaustion. You imagine yourself stepping outside into the street, though in truth it is rare for you to wander far in daylight. The cobblestones are slick with dew, reflecting slivers of grey sky. A man drives a herd of pigs past, their hooves clicking and snuffling, leaving behind a trail of muck. A pair of washerwomen argue cheerfully, their laughter ringing out as one splashes the other with water from a bucket. The world is noisy, chaotic, and yet there is rhythm in it, like a song composed of clatter, shouts, and the endless heartbeat of horses' hooves. You close your eyes for a moment, breathing in the sounds as though they might lull you back into calm. The city's noise is constant, but when listened to closely, it becomes almost like waves on a shore, rising, breaking, and fading again. A hawker's call pierces the hum. Fresh eels! Fresh eels. Another voice follows quickly, advertising bread. The words blur at the edges, softened by distance, transformed into a lullaby of commerce. For many, the streets are not merely pathways but homes. You know this well, having seen children sleeping in alleys, their small bodies curled against each other for warmth. The city does not forgive weakness, and yet it is filled with lives that endure. A boy runs past carrying newspapers, his bare feet slapping against the stones. He shouts headlines you cannot quite catch, though you hear the urgency in his voice. London thrives on urgency. Haymarket, though, holds its peculiar character even in the morning. Theatres still stand dark, their posters pasted thick on walls. Advertisements for comedies, operas and melodramas, their paper edges curled from damp. Later, these buildings will glow with light, their entrances crowded with men in frock coats and women in silks. But now at dawn they are silent, watching over streets that belong to hawkers, sweeps, and the restless poor. The smells shift as the morning lengthens. Coal smoke mingles with frying fish from a stall, with the faint sweetness of buns sold by a baker's boy carrying a tray strapped to his chest. Your stomach turns at the thought, though not unpleasantly, just the body's reminder of hunger and old and familiar companions. For many in London, food is never certain, and meals are often made from scraps and imaginings. Still, the scents drifting upward tell you that the city is alive, feeding itself in fragments and portions. You linger at the window, shawl wrapped close, watching as sunlight finally pushes through the haze. It strikes the upper stories first, gilding the edges of chimneys and roof lines. Smoke curls upward in lazy plumes, catching the lights, turning the air golden for a moment before the grey swallows it again. The sight is fleeting, but beautiful, one of those small graces that London offers if you are patient enough to notice. Eventually, footsteps sound in the hallway outside your room. A door slams somewhere below, followed by muffled voices. The first stirrings of the house itself. The brothel begins to wake just as the city outside finds its rhythm. Soon, there will be tasks to occupy the day: washing, sewing, preparing for the evening ahead. But for now, you let yourself rest a little longer in the quiet watch of morning, letting the sights and sounds of London at dawn settle into your minds. The city is harsh, unyielding, yet it holds a certain beauty when observed from this distance. It is alive in every crack, every voice, every hoofbeat. And though you are only one woman among thousands, for this moment you feel connected to it all. The sweep boy, the washerwomen, the hawkers and horses, all threads in the vast tapestry of London life. You draw the curtain gently closed and sit back on the beds. The sounds outside continue, muffled but steady, like a song playing on without end. And as you breathe slowly, evenly, you let the rhythm of the city carry you forward into the quiet of the day. When you live and work in a place like this, the walls hold more than your own story. They echo with footsteps, laughter, whispers, and sometimes the muffled sounds of tears in the night. Each woman here has her own tale, her own journey that brought her to this house, and though you may not know every detail, you come to learn fragments, little glimpses into the lives that brush against your own. Your roommate is the first you notice each morning. She stirs slowly, stretching beneath her thin blanket, hair falling across her face in tangled curls. Her name in the house is Ellen, though like you, it is not the name her mother once called her by. She has been here nearly a year, long enough that she is no longer considered new, but not so long that she has grown wary of everything. Ellen is younger than you, quick to laugh, quick to sigh, her moods shifting like the weather. She arrived thin and hollow-eyed, and though the life here has not made her rich, she is stronger now, with more colour in her cheeks and a steadiness to her steps. Ellen hums when she wakes, a habit that has become familiar to you. Today it is a scrap of some song she once heard at the music halls, the notes soft and uneven as she rubs the sleep from her eyes. She smiles when she catches you watching her, as though to say another day, and we are still here. It is not much, but in this house, such gestures are small gifts. Down the hall are others you see daily. There is Clara, tall and sharp-eyed, who has been in the house longer than anyone else. She carries herself with a kind of wary authority, though she is not the madam. If disputes arise among the women, Clara's word often settles them. She is not cruel, but she is firm, and her voice carries weight. Sometimes, in quiet moments, she speaks of Paris, where she once lived for a season, and her eyes grow distant, her voice softening into something almost tender. No one asks too many questions in this life. It is enough to share fragments without demanding the whole. Then there is Margaret, broad-shouldered and full of laughter that echoes down the stairwell. She is older than most in the house, her hair already streaked with grey, but she has carved a place for herself through sheer presence. Customers sometimes seek her out specifically, drawn not only to her but to the warmth of her company. In the evenings, when the lamps are lit and the piano downstairs begins to play, Margaret is often the one to start a song, drawing others into her orbit. Her voice is rough but strong, carrying above the noise, a reminder that even here, joy finds its way. Some women, though, keep more to themselves. Annie, slight and pale, moves like a shadow, slipping from one room to another with hardly a sound. She speaks little, but her eyes miss nothing, and when she does offer words, they are often sharp and precise. She arrived only months ago, her background whispered about but never fully revealed. In houses like this, mysteries are common, and sometimes it is safer not to ask. You have learned, over time, that companionship here is not simple friendship. It is survival. You share food, share stories, share the burden of difficult nights. When one falls ill, the others cover her absence, carrying trays of broth upstairs or fetching water from the pump. When one is cheated by a customer or left shaken by cruelty, the others close ranks, offering comfort in whatever form they can. It is not always gentle, tempers flare, voices rise, and resentment simmers. But beneath it all, there is a thread of understanding. You are in this together, and the world outside offers little kindness. The kitchens, cramped and smoky, is often where bonds are strongest. In the mornings before the day fully begins, you gather there to sip weak tea or chew on bread gone slightly stale. The table is scarred with knife marks, the floor worn smooth from years of feet passing over it. Conversation drifts easily, complaints about the cold, laughter at a shared joke, murmurs of news picked up from customers the night before. These moments, ordinary as they seem, form the fabric of your days. At times, tensions rise. A careless remark, a jealous glance, a quarrel over money left on a table. Such things can spark quickly in close quarters. But often the anger fades just as swiftly, replaced by the recognition that anger, too, is a luxury when you must depend on one another. You learn to forgive in small ways, to let things pass, because tomorrow will bring its own challenges, and it is easier to face them with allies than with enemies. The women of the house are not friends in the way girls might be at schools, nor family in the way sisters might be at home. Yet in their company you find something that resembles both. You know the sound of their laughter, the rhythm of their footsteps, the sighs that escape them when the day's weight becomes too much, and they in turn know you, not entirely, but enough to recognize your presence, to share in the fragile companionship that grows when lives are lived side by side. Sometimes, when the fire in the parlor burns low and the evening has ended, you all sit together in the half-dark, speaking quietly, voices carrying the intimacy of exhaustion. Dreams are shared then, a cottage by the sea, a return to family left behind, a life where work does not demand so much of the body. The dreams are fragile, spoken as though they might crumble under too much weight, but they are dreams nonetheless, reminders that you are still human, still capable of hopes. And so the house is filled not only with men who come and go, but with women who stay, each with her story, each with her resilience. In their company, you endure. In their presence, you are reminded that you are not entirely alone. And in the quiet hours of the mornings, when laughter has faded and only the breathing of your roommate keeps you company, you take comfort in knowing that tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, you will rise again together. The house itself is as much a character in your life as any of the women who live within its walls. From the outside, it does not draw undue attention. A narrow building of soot-darkened brick, wedged tightly among shops and lodging houses, it appears almost ordinary to the casual passerby. A small brass knocker on the door, steps worn smooth by countless boots, and windows curtained in heavy fabric give little hint of what goes on inside. Yet, for those who know, the location is unmistakable, one of the many establishments scattered across Haymarket, where business thrives both openly and discreetly. Stepping inside, you are immediately struck by the smell. It is a mixture you have come to recognize: coal smoke from the fireplace, stale beer carried in on customers' clothes, the faint sweetness of cheap perfume, and always beneath it all, the lingering mustiness of age and damp. It is not unpleasant exactly, but it is distinctive, and it clings to your senses until you can no longer separate it from the idea of home. The hallway is narrow, the walls covered in wallpaper that once boasted bright floral patterns, but now shows the dull browns and faded reds of long use. The gas lamps fixed at intervals along the corridor sputter faintly, their light throwing uneven shadows. At night they create an atmosphere meant to be warm and inviting, though in truth the flickering only emphasizes the age and wear of the place. By day, when the lamps are extinguished, the hallway feels dim and tired, the light from the windows barely reaching the ground floors. The parlour is the heart of the brothel, the first room a visitor sees. Here, effort has been made to create an illusion of comfort. A fire is kept burning most evenings, its glow softening the cracked edges of the furniture. Chairs and settees, upholstered in once bright velvet now dulled with years of use, are arranged around low tables. A worn piano sits against one wall, its keys uneven in tone, but serviceable enough to provide music when one of the women, or sometimes a willing customer, chooses to play. Heavy curtains frame the windows, shutting out the street beyond and keeping the activities inside hidden from prying eyes. It is here that men are greeted, offered drinks, and coaxed into conversation. The parlour is the stage, and each of you must play your parts. Laughter flows easily, sometimes genuine, sometimes not, as women move among the guests, pouring ale or gin, brushing shoulders, offering touches that blur the line between affection and performance. The firelight casts everything in a soft glow, masking the age of the furnishings, making even the most weary among you seem a little more luminous. Beyond the parlour lies the kitchen, far less glamorous but essential to the life of the house. The air there is thick with the smell of boiling tea, frying fish, or whatever meagre provisions have been secured for the day. The floor is rough stone, cold beneath bare feet, and the walls are lined with shelves stacked with chipped crockery. A long table dominates the center of the room, scarred by years of knives and spills. It is here that you and the others gather in the mornings, sharing bread, gossips, and the small comforts of companionship. The kitchen is the house's heartbeat, steady and unadorned, a place where the masks of evening can be briefly set aside. Upstairs, the rooms are cramped, their furnishings simple. Each contains a bed, a small table, and a chest for clothing. Some rooms are shared, others not, depending on the size of the house and the number of women within it. The walls are thin at night, sounds carry easily, footsteps, laughter, whispers, the creak of bed springs. Privacy is rare, but over time you grow accustomed to the closeness, learning to let noise fade into background hum. The stairwell itself is narrow, its banister polished smooth by years of hands sliding along it. The wood creaks with each step, a reminder of the countless feet that have ascended and descended before you. The house is old, its structure weary, but it endures. Patched and repaired as needed, never quite allowed to crumble. Like the women who inhabit it, it persists through necessity, adapting to the demands placed upon it. At the very top of the house is the attic, a space rarely visited except for storage. Here, trunks of discarded clothing and broken furniture gather dust, their presence a silent testament to the passage of time. Cobwebs cling to the beams, and the air smells of dust and old wood. Sometimes you wonder who once owned these forgotten things, what stories are hidden among them. But the attic remains a place apart, a shadowy reminder of all that is left behind. The brothel is not grand, nor is it squalid. It occupies a middle ground, much like those who work within it. Customers come here expecting warmth, companionships, and diversion, not the luxury of Mayfair parlours, but not the rough brutality of the lowest dives either. The house delivers what it promises, a place apart from the streets, where for a few coins a man might forget his troubles, even if only for an hour. For you and the other women's, the house is more than a place of work. It is the backdrop of your lives, the stage on which each day is set. Its walls have seen laughter, anger, sorrow, and resilience. They have absorbed secrets whispered in the dark and cries muffled by pillows. To outsiders it may be nothing more than a building, but to you it is a world, contained and complete, with its own rules and rhythms. As you walk through its rooms, the familiarity is comforting. The creak of the stairs, the flicker of the lamps, the scent of coal and perfume, all are as constant as the beat of your own heart. The brothel may not be beautiful, but it is known, and in a world where so much is uncertain, that familiarity carries its own kind of solace. And so, when evening falls and the lamps are lit, the house transforms once more into a place of welcome, its floors hidden by firelight, its wear softened by shadows. You take your place among the others, stepping into the parlour with a smile, ready to play your part beneath the gaze of the men who enter. The brothel is not merely where you live, it is the framework of your existence, shaping each moment, sheltering you, binding you, and reminding you daily of both your limits and your endurance. Morning in the house arrives not with sudden brightness, but with a slow creeping of grey light through the edges of heavy curtains. The city outside stirs early. Wagons rumble over cobblestones. Vendors shout their wares, and somewhere, a church bell tolls the hour. Inside the brothel, however, the rhythm is different. The night's activities have left the rooms heavy with silence, broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling, or the muffled cough of someone turning in bed. For you, waking is a gradual process. The woolen blanket has slipped from your shoulders in the night, and the morning chill settles against your skins. You draw it back around yourself, listening for the sounds of others rising. A murmur of voices drifts from the hallway as one of the women tiptoes past, her bare feet making soft thuds on the wooden floors. She is heading to the kitchen, no doubt to coax warmth from the fire and put water on to boil. The mornings here are not hurried. There is no pressing need to rush, for the work of the house lies mostly in the evenings. Yet there is still a rhythm, a set of small tasks that must be done to make the day livable. You sit up slowly, stretch your arms, and glance around the dim rooms. A wash basin sits on a stand near the bed, its water gone cool overnight. Beside it rests a cracked mirror, clouded at the edges, in which you catch a glimpse of your own reflection. Hair mussed, eyes still heavy with sleep. You splash your face with the water, the chill waking you fully, then pat yourself dry with a worn towel. There is comfort in these small rituals, in the repetition that gives shape to each day. Around you, the sounds of the house gather strength. The thump of boots on the stairs, the scrape of chairs being pulled across the kitchen floor, the rising murmur of voices as more of the women stir from their beds. Downstairs, the kitchen becomes the morning's gathering place. The fire is coaxed back to life with kindlings, and soon the air is thick with the smoky scent of coal. A kettle whistles faintly, and tin mugs are filled with steaming tea, dark and strong. Bread, purchased the night before from a nearby baker, is sliced and spread with butter, though the butter is often stretched thin to make it last. Sometimes there is porridge, sometimes only bread, and on better mornings, a bit of cured fish or cheese. The women gather at the table in their shawls and nightdresses, hair loose about their shoulders, faces bare of the paints and powders of evening. Here, in the soft haze of mornings, you see one another more clearly than at any other time, without performance, without pretense. Some laugh easily, sharing stories or gossip from the night before. Others sit in silence, nursing their tea, content simply to be in company. There is a sense of camaraderie, born of shared experience. You may not be friends in the truest sense, but you are companions in circumstance, bound together by the walls of the house and the life you lead within it. In the mornings, this bond feels strongest. You are not rivals then, nor performers. You are simply women, tired and human, seeking comfort in familiar ritual. Once tea is taken, tasks begin. The rooms must be tidied, beds remade, basins emptied and refilled. Sheets are shaken out the windows to let in air. Even when the air smells of soot and smoke, floors are swept and ashes cleared from the grates. These chores are not glamorous, but they give the house order, and in that order lies a kind of peace. You take part in them as naturally as you breathe, knowing that when the evening comes again, the rooms must appear ready, welcoming, as though the night's weariness had never touched them. Laundry is an almost constant task. Bundles of linens are carried to a wash tub in the yard or to the nearest wash house if coin allows. Soap stings hands rubbed raw, but the scent of clean cloth drying on the line brings a quiet satisfaction. The women often talk and laugh as they work, turning the drudgery into something shared. In the rhythm of scrubbing and rinsing, in the splash of water and the creak of wooden tubs, there is a strange steadiness. After chores, the pace of the day slows. Some women retreat to their rooms to rest further, curling back beneath blankets until afternoon. Others linger in the parlor, mending stockings, trimming worn ribbons, or simply watching the fire burn. A few venture out into the streets to fetch bread, to visit a pawn shop, or to buy trinkets that might catch a customer's eye later. The brothel by day is a quieter world, its energy subdued, its performers at rests. For you, mornings carry a mixture of relief and melancholy. Relief that the night is over, that you may sit among companions without masks, that you may sip your tea in peace. Melancholy, because you know evening will come again, as it always does, bringing with it the demands of performance, the endless cycle of smiles and embraces. Morning is your pause, your reprieve, and you cling to it gently, savouring each slow moment. By midday, the house is drowsy again, the kitchen fire burns low, and the women slip away one by one to their rooms. Silence falls over the house, broken only by the occasional sound of a cart in the street, or the cry of a hawker selling wares. You stretch out on your beds, shawl drawn around your shoulders, and close your eyes. The world outside may be bustling, but within the walls of the brothel, the morning has left its calm imprint, a softness that carries you gently toward the stillness of afternoons. The morning routine is not remarkable in itself. Simple meals, small tasks, shared company, but in its repetition lies its meanings. It is the thread that ties one day to the next, the anchor that steadies you in a life otherwise shaped by uncertainty. Each cup of tea, each loaf of bread, each sweep of the broom becomes part of a rhythm that gives shape to existence. In this rhythm, you find not joy perhaps, but steadiness, and sometimes that is enough. By the time the weak sun reaches its highest point above London, the brothel lies in a hush. Morning tasks are done, breakfast cleared, and most of the women have retreated into their rooms. The house, which only hours before held the murmurs of laughter and the scrape of chairs across the kitchen floor, now settles into a kind of drowsy quiet. Afternoon is a time of pause, a gentle lull between the labor of morning and the demands of night. From your windows, you can just see the rooftops of Haymarket stretching out against the pale sky. Smoke rises from chimneys in thick columns, blurring the outlines of the taller buildings. The city is never still, not truly, but from here it feels as though you are suspended just slightly apart from it, like a listener behind a door. The cries of street vendors drift up.
Fresh oysters!
Hot pies, mingling with the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and the crack of carriage wheels over stone. Sometimes, faint music floats on the air, the sound of a fiddler or a barrel organ playing for pennies. You sit near the window with your shawl drawn close, not to work but simply to watch. Afternoon light is pale and indirect, softening the sharp edges of the street below. A costermonger pushes his cart laden with apples, calling in a voice that echoes against the brick facades. A group of children trail behind him, giggling and shouting, their cheeks ruddy from the chills. For a moment you allow yourself to smile at the sight, though your own childhood feels a lifetime away. Within the house, afternoons unfold slowly. Some of the women doze, their soft breathing rising and falling behind closed doors. Others tend to small repairs, sewing a loose hem, mending stockings, stitching ribbons back to bodices. The parlour, stripped of its evening glamour, looks plain in the daylight. The lamps are unlit, their glass chimneys smudged with soot, and the plush chairs show their worn edges. Yet even here, there is comfort in the ordinary. The fire, banked low, radiates steady warmth, and the faint smell of coal smoke mingles with the perfume that lingers in the drapes. Afternoons also bring the housekeeper's presence. She moves quietly but with purpose, checking linens, arranging supplies, noting what must be purchased or repaired. She is neither harsh nor indulgent, but practical, her eyes sharp for disorder. Her footsteps echo on the stair, a reminder that even in rests, the brothel is a place of business, always preparing for its next performance. You sometimes help with these small duties, dusting the parlour, polishing the glassware, setting straight the odds and ends left from the night before. These tasks, while mundane, hold a certain soothing quality. The slow movement of a cloth across wood, the gentle scrape of ash from a grate, the quiet rhythm of folding fabric. Each action grounds you, steadying the hours until evening comes. Other afternoons you slip outside. The streets of Haymarket in daylight are different from the glittering theatre district they become at night. Now, the market stalls bustle with shoppers. Fishmongers shout the freshness of their catch, while bakers display loaves still warm from their ovens. The air carries the mingled scents of coal smoke, roasted chestnuts, and damp wool from passers-by's coats. Children dart between carts, dodging horses and wagons with a quickness born of necessity. Women in shawls and bonnets haggle over prices, their baskets swinging at their sides. Gentlemen stride past in tall hats, canes tapping rhythmically on the pavements, their eyes rarely lingering on the bustle around them. To walk among them is to feel both invisible and exposed, part of the crowd yet separate from it. You keep your shawl tight around you, head lowered, slipping in and out of the throng with practiced ease. Sometimes you buy a small treat, a bit of fruit, a hot meat pie, or on rare days, a sweet bun dusted with sugar. The coins are carefully counted, each purchase weighed against what little you can spare. Yet even these modest indulgences carry a comfort far greater than their price, a reminder of life's small pleasures in the midst of hardships. Returning to the house, you pass taverns where men linger even in daylight, their laughter spilling onto the streets. The scent of ale and tobacco drifts through open doors, mingling with the smoke that already hangs thick in the air. You pause briefly, listening to the coarse humour, then move on, your feet carrying you back to the quieter rhythm of the brothel's afternoon. Back inside, the calm is almost tangible. The house seems to breathe slowly in these hours, its walls holding a silence broken only by the occasional murmur of voices or the creak of a stair. You curl onto your bed, shawl drawn tight, and let your gaze rest on the faded wallpaper. Its pattern of flowers is nearly worn away in places, the colours dulled by times. Yet in the dim light it has a certain softness, a muted beauty that soothes the eye. Sleep often comes easily in these hours. The world outside continues its endless movement, but here within the house you drift in a pocket of stillness. The voices of children in the street blur into a distant hum, the clatter of wheels becomes a steady rhythm, and your thoughts grow slow, heavy, unhurried. Rest is not just a luxury but a necessity, for evening will bring demands that require every ounce of energy you can muster. When you wake, the light has shifted again, fading toward the amber tones of late afternoon. The house begins to stir with new energy. Doors creak open, footsteps sound on the stair, and soft voices exchange greetings. Women rise from their naps, smoothing hair, adjusting shawls, preparing quietly for what lies ahead. The long pause of afternoon is ending, and the slow march toward evening has begun. Afternoon in Haymarket is not marked by drama or grandeur, but by its quietness. It is a time of retreat, of small labours, of stolen rests. In this pause between the harsh demands of night and the weary chores of morning, there lies a rare gentleness. You hold it close. This fleeting stillness, knowing how quickly it will give way to the bright lamps, the laughter, and the endless performance of evening. For now, though as the last of the daylight lingers against the rooftops, you allow yourself a long breath, slow and steady. The city may bustle outside, but within these walls, the hush of afternoon cradles you softly, like the lull before a storm. By the time the sun begins its slow descent over London, the stillness of the afternoon is already giving way to a new kind of energy within the brothel. The women stir from their rest one by one, the hush of the house lifting as doors open, footsteps sound on the stair, and voices drift through the halls. Evening is approaching, and with it comes the transformation from ordinary life into performance. The first signs of change are subtle. A lamp is lit in the hallways, its faint golden glow softening the shadows. The kitchen fire is stoked higher, and kettles begin to boil, filling the air with the familiar hiss of steam. From upstairs, the faint splash of water echoes as basins are filled for washings, the icy surface broken by careful hands. Your own preparation begins simply. You sit on the edge of your bed, pulling your shawl tighter as you wait for the room to warm. On the small table beside you, your few treasures are arranged. A cracked mirror propped against the wall, a comb with missing teeth, a chipped jar of rouge, and a ribbon faded from red to rose. They are not much, but they are enough to shape an image. An illusion that will be presented to strangers before the night is through. You start with your hair, combing through the tangles with patient strokes. Stray strands catch in the comb, tugging slightly at your scalp, but soon the unruly locks fall into order. A ribbon ties them back, simple but effective. Next comes the face, a splash of cold water to wake the skin, a touch of powder to soften the shine, a dab of rouge to bring life to your cheeks. The mirror shows a woman, not unlike the one who stared back at you that morning, yet subtly altered. polished, composed, ready to play a role. Around you, the house hums with quiet industry. In the room across the hall, you hear soft laughter as two women share a mirror, trading advice about hairpins and ribbons. Downstairs, someone moves about the parlor, straightening chairs and setting the lamps in readiness. The scent of coal smoke mingles with perfume as bottles are opened and dabbed on wrists and necks, filling the air with notes of lavender, rose, or musk. Dressing is its own ritual. The gowns you wear in the evenings are not fines, not in the way of fashionable ladies who stroll Regent Street or sit in boxes at the theatre. Yet they are chosen with care. Low necklines, bright colours, fabrics that catch the light of gas lamps. Your own dress tonight is of deep blue, worn but serviceable, with a bodice trimmed in lace that has yellowed slightly with age. You smooth the skirt with your hands, feeling the familiar weight of fabric against your knees. Jewellery, though often cheap, provides the finishing touch. A necklace of glass beads, polished to catch the light, rests against your throat. Earrings, mismatched but gleaming, dangle from your ears. Each piece serves not to reveal who you are, but to create the impression of someone else. Someone brighter, more alluring. Someone who belongs in the glow of the evening rather than the shadows of the morning. By the time you descend the stairs, the parlor has transformed. Lamps burn brightly, casting warm light on the worn furniture, softening its edges. Curtains are drawn, shutting out the grey world beyond, leaving only this carefully curated stage. The fire crackles in the grate, its warmth inviting. Cushions are plumped, glasses polished, bottles of gin and brandy set in readiness on the sideboard. The room, so plain in the daylights, now glows with a kind of borrowed grandeur. The women gather here gradually, each emerging in turn, their transformations complete. Shawls have been exchanged for gowns, bare faces for painted smiles. Voices are livelier now, laughter more frequent, as though the performance has already begun. There is comfort in this ritual, a shared understanding that together you will step into the roles required of you. The housekeeper surveys the room with a sharp eye, ensuring all is in order. She straightens a chair, adjusts the wick of a lamp, gives a nod of approval. Soon the evening will truly begin, and guests will arrive, some loud and boisterous, others quiet and reserved, each carrying with them their own expectations, their own reasons for stepping through the door. For now, though, there is a stillness, a waiting. You pour yourself a small glass of water and sip it slowly, feeling the coolness ease your throat. Around you, the women chatter softly, exchanging stories, teasing one another, sharing secrets in hushed tones. The warmth of the fire seeps into your bones, steadying you for the hours ahead. This moment, poised between day and night, is one of quiet balance. You are neither the weary woman who rose in the chill of morning, nor yet the performer who will greet strangers with a practiced smile. You are simply yourself, preparing, breathing, gathering strength. Outside, the city darkens. Gas lamps flicker to life along the streets, their glow reflected in puddles left by the day's rain. The cries of vendors fade, replaced by the laughter of theatre, goers and the songs of taverns spilling onto the night air. Haymarket is awakening to its true identity, a place of noise, of spectacle, of endless performance. Inside, you feel the shift too. The house is alive now, its heart beating faster, its walls carrying the anticipation of footsteps that will soon cross the threshold. You adjust the fall of your dress, smooth your hair one last time, and draw in a deep breath. The night is coming, as it always does, and you are ready to meet it. Evening settles over London with a kind of heavy inevitability. The light outside dims until the streets are lit only by the flicker of gas lamps and the glow spilling from shop fronts and taverns. The city hums with new life, voices raised in laughter, boots striking against wet stones. The clatter of carriage wheels carrying theatre goers toward their seats. Haymarket, which by day bustled with vendors and tradesmen, now transforms into a different world entirely, one of spectacle, music and shadows. Inside the brothel, the parlor glows with steady warmth. Lamps cast soft halos of golden light, illuminating faces now painted with careful care. The fire in the grate crackles brightly, filling the room with a comforting heat. Cushions have been plumped, glasses polished, bottles of gin and brandy uncorked and ready. The transformation is complete. The stage is set. The women linger in the parlor, their gowns catching the lamplights, their voices weaving in a gentle hum of chatter and laughter. It is not forced yet. These are still moments of waiting, a shared breath before the curtain rises on the night's performance. Some recline gracefully on chairs, practicing the poses that flatter their figures. Others adjust ribbons or beads, ensuring every detail is in place. Each carries her own quiet ritual of readiness, but together they create a tableau of anticipation. Then, faint at first but unmistakable, comes the sound of footsteps on the pavement outside. A carriage rattles to a stop. The clip of boots approaches the door. There is a pause, a knock, and with it the shift you know so well, the invisible boundary between waiting and working. The door opens, and the first customers of the evening step inside. Their entrance is almost theatrical. Two men, middle-aged, dressed in coats still damp from the misty night, remove their hats with a flourish. Their laughter is loud, perhaps louder than the moment calls for, the kind of laughter that masks nerves. Behind them, a younger man follows, quieter, his eyes darting about the room as though uncertain where to rest them. The housekeeper greets them first, her voice warm but efficient. Coats are taken, hats set aside, and the men are ushered into the glow of the parlor. The atmosphere shifts subtly. What was moments ago a circle of women at ease is now an arrangement of smiles, postures, and glances carefully designed to welcome and entice. One of the women rises with graceful ease, offering a smile that carries both invitation and charm. She pours brandy into glasses, her movements smooth, practiced, almost ceremonial. The men accept with murmured thanks, their eyes already roaming, taking in the scene as though assessing a gallery of paintings. You sit a little straighter, adjusting the fall of your gown, letting your fingers rest lightly against the beads at your throat. This too is part of the ritual, the silent offering of presents, the creation of an image that is at once approachable and alluring. It is not a deception so much as a transformation, the slipping on of a mask that you have worn so many nights before. The men relax gradually, their laughter softening, their words becoming easier. They speak of the theatre they passed on their way here, of the crowds, of the dampness of the night. Small talk, casual and unimportant, but necessary. The parlor, with its warmth and its glow, works its spells. The outside world fades, and within these walls, the evening begins to take on its own rhythms. One of the men, a gentleman with greying sideburns and a booming voice, chooses quickly, settling beside a woman in a scarlet gown and engaging her in lively conversation. His companion lingers longer, casting glances, laughing nervously, sipping his brandy as though to steady himself. The youngest remains quietest of all, his gaze flickering toward you more than once, though each time he looks away quickly, as though embarrassed by his own attentions. There is no rush. The evening stretches ahead, and part of the art lies in patience. You smile when his eyes meet yours, just briefly, and let your gaze drift away again, leaving the space open for him to decide. It is a dance as much as any waltz played in the grand halls of Mayfair. Step forward, pause, retreat, waits. The room grows warmer with conversation. Glasses clink softly, laughter rises and falls. The parlor is alive now, its earlier stillness replaced by the gentle hum of voices and the flicker of firelight on polished glass. The first customers have been received, the threshold crossed, and the house has begun its nightly work. Even in these moments, there is a strange comfort. The ritual is familiar, the faces may change, but the rhythm does not. The knock at the door, the entrance, the greetings, the drinks poured, the laughter rising. It is as dependable as the turning of the seasons. And within that ritual lies a certain steadiness, a reminder that even in the most uncertain of lives, there are patterns that hold. The younger man glances your way again, this time longer, his shyness tempered by the glow of the brandy. You offer another small smile, softer this time, and see his shoulders ease just slightly. Perhaps later, perhaps not. The evening is young, and for now, it is enough simply to be part of this carefully constructed warmth. Outside, the sounds of the city continue, the calls of cab drivers, the distant strains of music drifting from taverns. But here within the brothel's walls, the world is contained, defined by lamplights, laughter, and the quiet weight of expectation. The night has begun, and with it, another chapter in the endless cycle of waiting, welcoming, and enduring. The parlor glows warmly, its lamps burning bright against the darkness outside. The fire crackles steadily, and the glasses on the sideboard catch the light, reflecting small glimmers of gold. The air is a blend of scents: coal smoke from the hearths, the faint sweetness of perfume, the sharpness of brandy. Voices rise and falls, weaving together into a tapestry of sound that is both lively and contained, a carefully balanced hum of laughter and talks. Conversation is the first true performance of the evening. Before music, before dancing, before anything else, there is talks. Words serve as introduction, as flirtation, as the quiet setting of boundaries. They are a dance in their own right, a delicate waltz of questions and answers, pauses and laughter, each step guiding the evening forward. The men, loosened by drink and warmth, begin to speak more freely. Their earlier nerves have faded into ease, and their voices carry across the rooms. The gentleman with greying sideburns is the loudest, his laughter booming as he tells a story about a theatre performance gone awry. A drunken actor stumbling across the stage, a line forgotten, the audience roaring in amusement. The woman beside him leans in close, her smile practiced but not unkind, her laughter rising in harmony with his. She is attentive, her gaze steady, her posture angled just so to give the impression of deep interests. At another corner of the parlor, the quieter man engages in gentler conversation. He asks about the neighborhood, about the theaters, about the weather. Topics simple enough, yet sufficient to keep the rhythm alive. His voice softens as the woman beside him nods and answers, her hand resting lightly on his sleeve. The gestures are small, but they create intimacy, weaving a cocoon of attention around them. And then there is the youngest guest, the one whose eyes had lingered on you earlier. He sits now with a glass in his hand, turning it slowly as though unsure whether to drink or to speak. His gaze drifts to you again, hesitates, then settles more firmly. You meet it with a calm smile, a gentle invitation, and after a moment he rises, crossing the space between you. "May I sit?" he asks, his voice low, uncertain. "Of course," you reply, gesturing to the chair beside you. He lowers himself into it, the wood creaking slightly under his weight. For a moment he says nothing, simply sips from his glass, then sets it carefully on the table. The silence is not uncomfortable, only tentative, like the first notes of a tune searching for their melody. You begin with something simple, a question about his evening, whether he has been to the theatre, whether he often walks Haymarket streets. He answers haltingly at first, his words clipped, but as the minutes pass his voice steadies. He speaks of his work, nothing grand, just clerking for a shipping company, and of the long hours spent in dusty offices. He speaks of the rain that always seems to find him on his way home, of the cramped room he rents, of the comfort he finds in a good book or a hot supper. As he talks, you listen. Truly listen. You nod at the right moments, offer small observations, ask gentle questions that encourage him onward. His shoulders relax, his hands no longer fidget with his glass, and soon the conversation flows as easily as water from a spring. He laughs softly at his own stories, glancing at you for reassurance, and you meet his gaze with a smile that tells him he is heard. This is the essence of the dance, not dazzling wit or clever remarks, but attention. To create the sense that, for this moment, The person before you matters more than anyone else in the world. It is an art as subtle as any painted portrait, as crafted as any stage play. The young man, like so many before him, begins to glow under its light, his words growing freer, his smile more open. Around the room, similar dances unfolds. Each pair or trio forms its own small stage, its own rhythm of words and gestures. Laughter ripples through the air in waves, first from one corner, then another. The fire pops, sending sparks upward, as though applauding the performances it witnesses nightly. The women, though practiced in their roles, do not move mechanically. Each brings her own shade of personality, her own way of shaping the evenings. Some are bold, teasing, quick with laughter. Others are gentle, soothing, content to let the men speak at length. Together, they weave a tapestry of voices that holds the guests within it, drawing them deeper into the warmth of the parlor. For you, the conversation with the young man stretches on, unhurried and calm. He tells you about his family in the countryside, about a sister who writes letters filled with gossip, about a mother who worries over his health. He speaks of small things, yet in his tellings they grow luminous, carrying the weight of his affection. You find yourself nodding, smiling, offering small words of encouragement. In truth, the content matters less than the connection. What matters is the rhythm, the trust that grows in the space between sentences. As the hour advances, glasses are refilled, laughter deepens, and the parlor takes on a gentle haze of warmth. The dance of conversation has done its work, drawing the guests out of their shells, smoothing their nerves, weaving them into the fabric of the evening. The first barriers have been lowered, the first steps taken. Later, there will be music, perhaps singing, perhaps games or dancing. But for now, it is enough to sit by the fire, to speak in low voices, to share small pieces of lives otherwise lived far apart. Words have laid the foundation, as they always do, for everything that follows. Outside, the night deepens, the city carrying on in all its noise and brightness. Inside, the brothel hums with its quieter music, the music of voices, of laughter, of the gentle rise and fall of conversation. It is a performance, yes, but also a refuge, a place where for a few hours loneliness can be softened by words spoken in the warmth of lamplight. The parlor has grown comfortable with its hum of voices and clink of glasses. The fire burns lower now, glowing with deep embers rather than sharp flame, and the room seems wrapped in a softer kind of warmth. Conversation has done its work, weaving guests and hosts into easy company. The time has come for the evening to shift, to add another layer to its rhythms. It begins with a suggestion, light and playful. One of the women, draped in silk the color of midnight, rises with a laugh and moves to the small pianoforte tucked in the corner of the room. Her fingers hover over the keys for a moment, and then, with a graceful press, the first notes spill into the air. The sound is delicate at first, almost tentative, but quickly grows into a lively tune. The music transforms the parlor. Conversation lowers to a murmur, as though making space for the melodies. Faces turn toward the sound, smiles forming almost unconsciously. The jaunty rhythm seems to lift the very air, turning the heavy heat of fire and brandy into something lighter, brighter. Feet begin to tap. Shoulders sway. Even the shyest guest cannot help but soften under the spell of music. The gentleman with the booming laugh raises his glass and declares the performance splendid, though the piece has barely begun. His companion claps along, offbeat but earnest, while the women exchange knowing smiles. Music, after all, is the surest way to ease the last remnants of reserve. The tune shifts into something gentler, a waltz-like melody that seems to beckon to the floor itself. One woman takes the hand of a guest and draws him into a slow turn across the rugs. The steps are small, constrained by the furniture, but graceful nonetheless. Their laughter rises as they sway, skirts brushing against chairs, boots scuffing softly against the floorboards. Soon another pair joins then another, until the parlor is alive with motion. You watch for a moment, smiling at the whirl of fabric, and the sound of laughter mingling with the notes. Then a voice at your side draws you back. The younger guest, the one who had spoken so quietly at first. He leans closer, his cheeks touched with colour, not only from the brandy, but from something gentler, a flush of courage. "Would you care to dance?" he asks, his voice tentative yet sincere. You accept with a nod, letting him lead you onto the crowded rug. His hand trembles slightly as it takes yours, but his grip steadies once the music carries him forward. The two of you move together, swaying in time with the others, the steps simple, almost childlike in their ease. There is no grand ballroom here, no glittering chandeliers, only lamplight and laughter. But in its intimacy, the moment feels no less real. Around the room, merriment grows. One woman sings along to the melody, her voice warm and low, carrying the tune with surprising strength. Others clap in rhythm, their hands adding percussion to the song. A bottle is passed, glasses are raised, and the parlour becomes less a stage and more a gathering, a space of shared joy. Even the housekeeper, usually so composed, allows herself a smile as she watches the scene. She does not join, but her eyes soften, her posture eases, and for a moment she too seems caught in the spell of music. The young man guiding you through the waltz grows bolder with each step. He meets your gaze more steadily now, his laughter rising when he stumbles slightly and you guide him back into rhythm. For him, perhaps, this is more than a dance. It is a moment of being seen, of being held in the warmth of another's company. The tune quickens, playful now, and the dancers respond with louder laughter and quicker steps. A chair is knocked askew, someone nearly collides with the sideboard, and yet it only adds to the merriment. The parlour is alive, the brothel transformed from a place of anticipation into one of release, where cares can be forgotten in the rhythm of music and the comfort of laughter. When the piece finally ends, it does so with a flourish, a final cascade of notes ringing bright against the quiet that follows. Applause bursts out, hands clapping, voices praising. The pianist rises with a graceful bow, her smile touched with pride. Glasses are raised again, to her, to the music, to the night itself. The energy lingers even as the dancers return to their seats, cheeks flushed, eyes shining. Conversation resumes, but now it is livelier, brighter, carrying the glow of shared experience. The music has loosened the last knots of hesitations, and the parlour hums with a new kind of intimacy. You return to your seat with the young man, both of you a little breathless from the dance. He thanks you quietly, his voice steadier now, his smile less uncertain. You offer a soft reply, your own expression calms, and together you sit in the warm haze of the evening, letting the hum of laughter and music wash over you. Outside, the city remains dark, damp, restless. But within these walls there is light, warmth, and the simple joy of song and steps. Music has done what it always does. It has turned strangers into companions, hesitation into laughter, silence into merriment. And so the night moves onward, the parlour alive with its quiet magic, each moment flowing seamlessly into the next, carrying all within it deeper into the embrace of the evening. The parlour, once so lively with music and laughter, begins to soften as the night stretches on. The fire burns lower, the glasses on the sideboard stand mostly empty, and the notes of the pianoforte linger only as echoes in the mind. Merriment has done its work, loosening inhibitions, weaving together a fabric of camaraderie and warmth. But as the clock's hands creep toward the later hours, the rhythm of the evening changes again. Now comes the time of quieter moments, of smaller circles forming, of conversations moving from the public glow of the parlour into the gentler, more shadowed corners of the house. What began as a gathering of many now dissolves into clusters of 2 or 3, or perhaps only pairs, slipping away into adjoining rooms where the world grows stiller. These retreats are not hurried but unspoken, carried out with subtle gestures. The glance of an eye, the touch of a hand, the rise from a chair with a quiet invitation. You notice it happening gradually. The boisterous gentleman with greying sideburns, and his companion drift toward the narrow sitting room just off the halls, where softer lamplight and a smaller hearth create a cocoon of intimacy. Their laughter fades behind the partly closed doors, leaving only the faint glow spilling across the threshold. Another couple rises and climbs the stairs, their footsteps soft against the worn carpet. Their shadows stretch across the wall before vanishing into the dimness above. A third pair lingers at the back of the parlor itself, speaking in low voices, the firelight catching only the curve of a smile, the tilt of a head leaning closer. The house seems to breathe differently now, its pulse slowing, deepening. The sharp edges of earlier laughter are replaced with murmurs, the energy of music traded for the hush of more private exchanges. For the women, this shift is as much a performance as the dancing had been, though it is subtler, less visible. Each guest is guided, gently and almost invisibly, into the rhythm that suits him best. Some toward conversation, others toward comforts. A few perhaps toward nothing more than the simple solace of company. You remain seated by the fire, the young guest beside you. His hand rests lightly on the arm of his chair, close enough that you can sense the warmth of it, though he does not yet reach for yours. His gaze drifts to the glowing embers, then back to you, and though his voice is quiet, it carries with it the weight of someone searching for steadiness. "Do you ever tire of it?" he asks after a pause. The question hangs in the air, unhurried, without expectation. You smile faintly, leaning back against the chair's worn upholstery, and let the crackling of the fire fill the silence before answering. "Tire of what?" He hesitates, then gestures vaguely around the rooms. To the house, to the night itself, all of this. It is not an unusual question. Many men, once loosened from the first sheen of drink and laughter, find themselves wandering towards something quieter, deeper, if only for a fleeting moment. You answer him gently, not with blunt honesty, but with the kind of truth that soothes rather than wounds. You tell him that nights differ, that some are easier than others, that sometimes the music and laughter bring as much comfort to you as they do to him. And in that moment, it is true. He listens closely, nodding his shoulders, easing as though your words have lifted a weight from him. The firelight reflects in his eyes, softening their uncertainty. He leans a little nearer, not in boldness but in quiet trusts, as though he has found in you someone willing to hold his words without judgment. Elsewhere in the house, similar retreats unfold. In the upstairs rooms, voices murmur low, the sound of footsteps moving softly across wooden floors. In the small back parlor, a faint thread of song drifts, a woman humming to herself, her companion listening in silence. Even the housekeeper, making her late rounds, moves more slowly now, as though careful not to disturb the hush that has settled over everything. There is no rush in these moments. Time seems to stretch, the minutes lengthening as if reluctant to leave the shelter of night. Outside, London streets remain alive with noise. Carriages rattling over cobblestones, drunken shouts from nearby taverns, the occasional cry of a street vendor still awake. But within these walls the world is smaller, quieter, more self-contained. You and the young man remain by the fire for some time, speaking softly, letting the words rise and fall in the stillness. He tells you about books he has read, about a poem he once memorized, though he stumbles over the lines as he tries to recall them. You laugh gently, not unkindly, and the sound makes him smile in turn. There is comfort in the simplicity of it, in the act of sitting together, of letting the warmth of the fire carry you both deeper into ease. At last, when the clock chimes another hour, the house seems to sigh. A few more couples drift away to private rooms, the parlor empties further, and the night folds into its most secret stage. For those who remain awake, time is no longer measured by the clock, but by the fading of lamplight, by the slow descent of voices into whispers, by the growing heaviness of eyelids. The young man leans back in his chair, his posture looser now, his voice softer still. He thanks you, not with flourish, not with grand words, but simply and sincerely. You nod in reply, letting the moment linger without breaking it. Private retreats are not always about desire or passion. More often, they are about something smaller, something gentler, the chance to be heard, to be seen, to set aside the weight of the day for a few hours. In that sense, they are as much for the women as for the men, though the balance is never perfect. What matters is that, for this night, each person finds a measure of quiet in the shelter of another's company. And so the house drifts deeper into its late night rhythm, its laughter softened into murmurs, its music replaced with silence, its energy folded inward. The parlor, the staircases, the upstairs rooms, all hold fragments of conversation, of laughter, of comfort. Within these walls, for just a few hours, the world outside fades. The house is quieter now, its laughter and music tucked away into rooms behind closed doors. Only the occasional creak of floorboards or the soft murmur of voices drifts through the corridors. The fire in the main parlor has dwindled to a low glow, its embers pulsing faintly like a heartbeat. The lamps burn lower, their light golden but subdued, as though even the oil within them senses the need for calm. It is in these late hours, when the bustle has slowed and the world outside feels very far away, that secrets often emerge. They arrive not with fanfare but in whispers, in half-finished sentences, in the kind of confessions that slip out when the air is heavy and the heart is tired. For many men, the brothel is not only a place of indulgence, but a refuge, a confessional without judgments, a stage where truths can be spoken under the cover of dim light and the assurance that, come morning, they will vanish like smokes. The young man beside you, who earlier had asked if you tired of such nights, leans back in his chair now, his glass untouched on the table. His voice is quieter than before, hesitant, as though he is unsure whether to release the words pressing at him. At last, with a sigh that seems older than his years, he begins to speak. "I don't much belong in the world I live in," he says softly, eyes fixed on the glowing embers. "At the office I am nothing more than a name on a ledger, another pair of hands copying figures. At home, I am the quiet son expected to follow a path laid down long before I was born. Sometimes I think..." He pauses, shaking his head faintly. "Sometimes I think I could vanish and no one would notice, not really." The words hang in the stillness, fragile and raw. You listen without interruption, giving him the gift of silence. It is not your place to solve his burden, nor could you if you tried. But you know the weight of invisibility, of living in the shadow of expectations. And so your stillness becomes its own kind of answer. He glances at you then, perhaps expecting judgment, but finds only your calm gaze. Encouraged, he continues. He speaks of debts that trouble him, of mistakes made quietly, of dreams left unpursued, because they seemed foolish in the eyes of others. He speaks not with drama, but with a wary honesty, the kind that rarely sees daylight, and in listening you recognize a truth of your own. Secrets are not only the burden of men who come through the brothel's doors. The women, too, carry theirs, memories of past lives, of families left behind, of choices made in desperation. There are names you no longer speak, faces you have trained yourself to forget, stories you tell only in fragments when the mood is safe. In this house, everyone wears masks, and yet, in the late hours, sometimes the masks slip. Elsewhere, similar confessions ripple through the quiet. Behind closed doors, a gentleman admits to debts his wife knows nothing of, while another confesses his fears of illness or ruins. Some reveal tender affections for women they dare not court publicly. Others speak of loneliness so sharp it cuts through their everydays. For the women listening, these stories are familiar, different only in detail. They nod, they soothe, they offer the kind of presence that asks nothing in return. Secrets are currency here, though not in the way money is. They are traded for comfort, for the illusion of understanding, for the temporary relief of being seen. And though the women rarely repeat what they hear, the knowledge lingers in the air, woven into the fabric of the house itself. a silent history carried in whispers. The young man beside you grows quieter as his words run dry, as though he has poured out more of himself than he meant to. He looks down at his hands, embarrassed by his own candor, but you ease him with a simple gesture, a soft smile, a gentle touch on his sleeve. There is no need for grand answers. Often, the act of speaking is its own balm. Do you ever feel lighter after telling someone? You ask him quietly. He considers this, then nods, almost reluctantly. Perhaps it feels less heavy at least. And that, you think, is the heart of it. Secrets are burdens because they live in silence. Spoken aloud, even in the safety of a dimly lit parlor, they lose some of their sharpness. They may not vanish, but they become bearable. The house, with its faded wallpaper and its creaking staircases, carries hundreds of such secrets. They are tucked into the cushions of chairs, into the worn edges of carpets, into the smoke, stained plaster of the ceilings. Each night adds new layers, new whispers, new stories that will never find their way into ledgers or newspapers. It is a history that belongs only to those who lived it, written not in ink, but in memory and in silence. As the embers fade further and the air grows colder, you sense the hour drawing near to its quietest point. Soon the house will sleep, the last conversations dwindling, the last glasses emptied. But for now, the young man sits beside you, his shoulders a little looser, his voice steadier, his burden perhaps just slightly lessened. The weight of secrets remains, but in sharing, it has shifted. And in that shift lies the smallest measure of relief, enough to carry him into the next day, enough to remind him that, at least for tonight, he was not invisible. The house rests in its gentlest rhythm now. Midnight has long passed, and the city outside is quieter, though never fully silent. A cart rattles somewhere in the distance, its wheels echoing against stones. And now and then a drunkard's song drifts faintly from a nearby alley before dissolving into the stillness. But within the brothel's walls, the night has folded into something softer, more fragile, as though each sound might disturb the delicate fabric of sleeps. The parlor is nearly empty. Only the faint glow of the fire remains, its embers pulsing with a red warmth that seems alive, though fading. A few candles still flicker, their wax dripping lazily, but most lamps have been extinguished. The hush is heavy, pressing close around you, as if the house itself has exhaled after the long performance of the evening. Upstairs, the floorboards creak with muffled steps, a door closing here, another opening there. In some rooms, voices murmur low, too quiet to make out. In others, silence reigns, broken only by the faint sigh of a sleeper turning in bed. It is the fragile hour when wakefulness and rest overlaps, when the body yearns for sleep but the mind still clings to thought. You sit by the fire with the young guest, who has grown quiet after his earlier confessions, his eyes half closed, his chin dipping forward, yet he fights the pull of slumber. He speaks in fragments now, half-formed sentences about his journey home tomorrow, about the weather, about nothing at all. His voice is low, as if he too feels the spell of this fragile time. There is something tender about these hours. Masks have long since slipped. The laughter and bravado of the evening faded. What remains is simple humanity, stripped of ornament. A man dozing in his chair. A woman warming her hands at the last embers. The sound of steady breathing from behind closed doors. The grandeur of the night has ebbed away. Leaving behind only what is real, you pull your shawl closer around your shoulders, the chill of early morning creeping in through the walls. The damp London air finds its way into every crack, curling cold fingers around ankles and wrists. Yet the hush is soothing, almost protective. The chaos of the city, the clatter, the stench, the endless press of people, feels distant here, as though held at bay by the weight of sleep. For the women, this is both a welcome respite and a vulnerable time. Fatigue settles deep in the bones, muscles aching from hours of performance, from dancing, smiling, listening. Yet there is also a strange comfort in these hours. The work is nearly done, the noise subdued, and for a few fleeting moments, It feels as if the house belongs to you again. The young man finally leans back fully, his breathing slowing. His glass sits untouched on the table, the brandy long since cooled. His head tilts to one side, and though he tries once or twice to rouse himself, sleep claims him at last. You watch quietly, then rise to drape a woolen throw across his shoulders. It is not affection so much as habit, a small kindness repeated countless times for countless guests who found themselves too weary to leave before dawn. The fire gives a final crackle, sending up a brief shower of sparks before settling into a steady glow. You lower yourself back into your chairs, letting your own eyes close for a moment, though not fully. Sleep does not come easily to you here, it never quite has. Instead, you drift in that space between waking and dreaming, where thoughts blur and time stretches oddly. Around the house, the fragile hours unfold in their quiet ways. In one room, a woman hums softly, a lullaby more to herself than to her companion. In another, a man snores heavily, his boots still on, while the woman beside him stares at the ceiling, lost in thought. Downstairs, the housekeeper makes her final rounds, checking locks, ensuring the last lamps are out. Her footsteps are steady, measured, a rhythm of reassurance. Outside, the first hints of dawn are still far off, but the night feels thinner now, as though the edge of morning presses faintly against it. The air carries a different weight, softer, touched with the faint promise of change. You feel it in your bones, in the slowing of your breath, in the quiet surrender of the house around you. It is in these fragile hours that the walls seem to hold the most stories. The laughter, the secrets, the sorrows, all linger here, suspended in the stillness. If you listen closely, you can almost hear them, echoes of music, fragments of whispered confessions, the brush of skirts across the floor. They do not vanish with the night, but remain, layered one atop another, like invisible wallpaper covering every surface. And yet, for all the weight of history, the house feels peaceful now. Its chaos has stilled, its voices hushed, its performers resting. For a little while, it is simply a house again, not a stage, not a confessional, not a place of survival, just a place where people, weary and human, rest in the quiet embrace of night. As your eyes grow heavier, you let your body sink deeper into the chair, the crackling embers your only companion. The fragile hours before dawn hold you gently, like a lullaby made of silence. Whatever tomorrow brings, work, hunger, laughter, sorrow, belongs to the future. For now, there is only the warmth of the shawl, the glow of the fire, the slow, steady rhythm of breath. And with that, the night continues to drift, carrying the house and all within it toward the soft edge of morning. Morning does not arrive suddenly in London, but creeps in quietly, almost reluctantly, through the cracks and corners of the night. It begins with a faint paling of the sky, a softening of the shadows, and the muffled sounds of life beginning again outside the windows. A milk cart rattles over the cobblestones, its driver whistling a slow, steady tune. Somewhere, a church bell tolls the hour, its echo carrying across the rooftops. The city, heavy with fog and soot, stirs itself awake. Inside the house, the first light filters through the curtains in thin stripes. The glow reveals what the darkness softened. The stains on the wallpaper, the soot along the mantel, the weary lines on the faces of those still dozing in chairs or tangled in sheets. Morning has no gentleness here. It is a reminder, a weight, a call to rise whether the body is ready or not. The young man who had fallen asleep by the fire stirs now, blinking against the grey light. He sits up slowly, rubbing his eyes, his movements heavy with the dull ache of little rest. The blanket slips from his shoulders and pools at his feet. For a moment he looks dazed, as if uncertain where he is. Then memory returns, and he gives a small, tired smile, half gratitude, half embarrassment. You greet him softly, your voice low so as not to disturb those still asleep nearby. He mutters a few words of thanks, gathers his coat, and prepares to leave. There is no farewell beyond this, no lingering sentiment. He steps out into the early morning air, his figure soon swallowed by the fog that clings to the narrow street. In the kitchen, the housekeeper is already at work. The faint smell of weak tea and porridge drifts upward, not enough to satisfy but enough to warm. She moves about briskly, her apron tied tight, her hair pinned back. She has seen countless mornings like this, each the same and yet always a little heavier than the last. Upstairs, doors begin to creak open. Some women shuffle into the hall, their shawls pulled tight, their faces pale with fatigue. Others remain in beds, stealing what little rest they can before being roused. Their voices are hushed, their movements slow. There is little chatter in the mornings. The laughter and performance of the night feel far away, almost like they belong to someone else entirely. You rise at last, wrapping yourself in a shawl, and step into the corridor. The boards are cold beneath your feet, the air damp with the lingering chill of the night. You pass by closed doors, hearing faint breaths and sighs from within. Each room holds its own wariness, its own private weight carried forward into another day. In your small chamber, you wash your face with water from a basin, the chill bracing against your skin. The cracked mirror on the wall reflects a pale, tired figure, eyes shadowed, hair loose, shoulders stooped. The light of morning has a way of stripping away illusions. It reveals the truth without softness, without apology. By the time you return to the kitchen, a few others have gathered. They sit at the worn wooden table, spoons moving slowly through their bowls, shoulders slumped. The porridge is thin, stretched to feed many, yet it is warm, and that warmth is enough for now. Steam curls upward, carrying the faint scent of oats. The women eat without much talks, their silence not unfriendly but heavy with exhaustion. The housekeeper pours tea into chipped cups, setting each one down with practiced efficiency. Her hands never falter, though the lines of her face betray her own fatigue. She does not linger to join the women, but continues her work, preparing for the day ahead. She knows the cycle will repeat tonight, and the next night, and countless nights after. Outside, the street grows louder. Market vendors call to early customers, their voices carrying through the mist. Horses clop steadily past, their breath visible in the cold air. A newsboy shouts the morning headlines, his voice shrill against the hum of waking London. The city has no regard for the weariness of its people. It demands movement, labor, attentions. One by one, the women finish their meal and drift back toward their rooms. Some will sleep for a few more hours, curling beneath thin blankets until the afternoon. Others will tend to small tasks, mending dresses, brushing hair, wiping down the parlors. There is no luxury of full rest here. Morning is not an end but a pause, a fragile interval before the night begins again. You linger a little longer at the table, cradling your cup between your palms. The tea is bitter, but it warms you from the insides, chasing away the damp chill that seeps through the walls. For a moment, you allow yourself to simply sit, listening to the quiet movements of the house, the faint clatter of dishes, the muffled life of the street beyond. The morning light continues to grow, brightening slowly, stubbornly. Dust motes dance in its beams, visible only for an instant before vanishing again. It is not a kind light, but it is honest. It reveals what the night conceals, the weariness, the struggle, the endless persistence of life within these walls. And yet, in its own way, the morning also brings a fragile hope. However heavy the hours of the night have been, they have passed. A new day lies ahead, uncertain but open. For now, that is enough. The house settles into its morning rhythm, quieter than the night but no less alive. Within its walls, women rest, work, endure. Outside, the city marches on unyielding. Between the two, you sit for just a little longer, wrapped in shawl and silence, holding fast to this fleeting moment of stillness before weariness carries you back to bed. The city slows a little in the afternoons, though it never quite rests. London is too vast, too hungry, too restless for stillness. Yet in the quieter side streets, in houses like this one, there is a softness that comes with the later hours of the day. The fog has lifted, leaving behind a pale grey sky, and a thin light filters through the windows, muted and faint. Shadows grow longer, pooling in corners, stretching along the floorboards. Inside, the house holds its breath. After the weariness of the morning, it has settled into a hush. The laughter and music of the previous night are far behind, and the labour of the next night has not yet begun. For a few brief hours, there is space for something else, the gentleness of rest, the rhythm of small, quiet tasks, the fragile sense of calm that settles when the world is neither ending nor beginning, but simply continuing. In the shared rooms, some women sleep, their faces softened by slumber, their bodies curled beneath shawls and thin blankets. Their breathing is steady, a faint rise and fall that fills the stillness with its own kind of music. Others sit by the fire, mending stockings or stitching loose seams, their fingers moving steadily, their voices low when they speak at all. Conversation drifts and fades like smoke, unhurried, unimportant. The work is small, but it keeps the hands busy and the mind settled. The parlour, usually bright with gaslight and laughter at night, looks different now. Its heavy curtains are half drawn, muting the daylight into a gentle gloom. The chairs, so often occupied by guests, stand empty, their upholstery worn but serviceable. On the mantel, a clock ticks softly, its hands marking the slow crawl of the afternoon. Dust motes swirl lazily in the beams of light that sneak through the curtains, tiny golden flecks against the dim air. You sit near the hearth, a small piece of mending in your lap. The thread slips easily through the fabric, the familiar motion soothing in its repetition. Around you, the house feels almost peaceful. The sounds from outside, distant wheels, the occasional shout, the bark of a dog, seem far away, muffled by the thick walls. It is as though the house has folded itself inward, cocooning its inhabitants in this rare moment of stillness. From the kitchen comes the faint clatter of dishes. The housekeeper hums softly to herself as she prepares a simple stew for later, the tune old and familiar, half hymn, half lullaby. The scent of onions and herbs drifts upwards, mingling with the faint perfume that lingers in the air. It is not a feast, but it is warm, and the thought of it is comforting. In the upstairs corridor, a girl hums quietly as she brushes her hair before the mirror. Each stroke of the brush releases a soft shimmer, strands catching the weak light before falling into place. Her reflection looks back at her, pale and thoughtful, its eyes shadowed by fatigue but softened by the brief indulgence of this quiet ritual. She pauses now and then, tilting her head as if searching for herself in the glass. The afternoon stretches onward, unhurried. The weight of the morning has lightened, replaced by a slower kind of heaviness. The kind that comes when the body longs for sleep, but the mind resists, clinging to wakefulness. Some women give in, lying down for a few more hours of rest. Others linger in chairs, too restless to close their eyes, yet too wary to move with purpose. It is a liminal space, a time between, when nothing demands attention, but everything waits. You finish your mending and set the work aside, resting your hands in your lap. The quiet settles around you like a shawl. You listen to the crackle of the fire, the hum from the kitchen, the faint creak of the old house shifting in its beams. It is an old building, with its own voice, its own memory. Every creak and sigh carries the weight of years, the countless footsteps that have passed through its halls. Someone laughs softly in the next room, a sudden, gentle burst of sound. It is not loud, not mocking, but warm, a reminder that even here, there is space for lightness. The laughter fades quickly, replaced once more by silence, but its echo lingers like a trace of sunlight after the sun has slipped behind the clouds. Outside, the shadows lengthen. The lamplighter makes his rounds, moving steadily from street to street, his pole lifting flame to the waiting lamps. One by one, they flare to life, their glow golden against the encroaching dusk. The world beyond the walls begins to stir again, preparing for the night ahead. Carriages rattle past more frequently now, voices carry more clearly, and the air takes on a sharper edge as evening approaches. Inside, however, the stillness remains for a little longer. The stew simmers in the kitchen, its scent filling the house with warmth. The women finish their tasks or drift back to their rooms, gathering strength for what is to come. In the parlor, the clock continues its steady ticking, marking the slow, inevitable passage of time. You lean back in your chair, closing your eyes for a moment. The rhythm of the house holds you, soothing in its quiet persistence. Shadows gather, but they do not feel threatening. They are soft, gentle, a veil drawn over the afternoon as it surrenders itself to evenings. For now, this is enough. The quiet, the warmth, the fragile peace of the in-between. Tomorrow will come, and tonight will bring its own demands. But in this hour, in this hush, there is only the steady beat of life continuing, one moment folding gently into the next. Evening in London does not creep in quietly, but arrives with purpose, heralded by sounds and scents that spill through every window and cracks. Outside, the street grows busier. The lamplighter has already made his way along the cobbles, raising his pole to coax each glass lantern into a golden glow. The lamps flicker at first, then steadies, their halos breaking through the deepening fog. Their light is not bright, not enough to banish the shadows, but warm enough to guide the countless feet and wheels that will soon pass this way. Inside the house, the stillness of the afternoon begins to shift. It starts with the faint rustle of fabric, the closing of doors, the soft murmur of voices drifting from room to room. The women, who had spent the day resting, mending, or simply waiting, now rise with purpose. Night is their stage, their labor, their survival. The transition from day to night is a ritual, repeated countless times, yet never entirely the same. In the parlor, the curtains are drawn tight to shut out the gloom. Candles are lit one by one, their flames trembling before settling into steady glows. The fire is coaxed back to life, its embers stirred until flames rise once more, filling the hearth with warmth. The air shifts, taking on a faint sweetness as perfumes are uncorked and dabbed onto wrists, necks, and handkerchiefs. The smell of rosewater and lavender blends with the lingering scent of coal smokes, creating an atmosphere both delicate and heavy. Upstairs, brushes glide through hair, pulling out tangles with patient strokes. Ribbons are tied, pins adjusted, curls coaxed into place. Powder dusts pale cheeks, and coal darkens tired eyes, softening the shadows left by sleepless nights. Each woman has her own ritual, her own quiet preparation. Some hum softly as they work, their voices carrying through the hall like distant echoes. Others are silent, their concentration fixed on the mirror before them, as though searching for a version of themselves that belongs to the night. Clothing is chosen carefully, though the choices are limited. Dresses of silk and satin are worn thin from years of use, their seams mended countless times, their colors faded by candlelight and wear. Yet with careful arrangement, an artful fold, a pinned brooch, a fresh ribbon, they still carry the illusion of glamour. The women know well how to turn threadbare into alluring, how to draw attention not with wealth but with presence. In the kitchens, the housekeeper clears away the remnants of the day's stew, her apron dusted with flour and soot. She moves briskly, wiping surfaces, setting the kettle on to boil. She will not appear in the parlor tonight, but her work is no less important. She keeps the rhythm steady, ensuring the house moves as it must. Even in her absence from the stage, she is part of its machinery. The madams, her voice carrying more than most, makes her rounds through the house. She checks the rooms, the hearths, the parlor. She reminds one woman to adjust her gown, another to hurry her preparations. Her presence is firm but not harsh. She has done this for many years, and though her face carries the marks of time, her posture remains unbent. She knows the balance required, discipline enough to keep the house orderly, gentleness enough to hold it together. As the hour advances, the hum within the house grows. The fire crackles in the parlor, candles burn steadily, and the faint notes of a piano drift through the lower rooms. One of the girls practices a tune, her fingers stumbling slightly but finding the melody in time. The music is soft, tentative, yet it fills the air with promise. It is not for the women, not truly, but for the guests who will soon arrive. Still, for now, it lends the house a kind of grace. Outside, the sounds of the city swell. Carriages roll steadily past, their wheels clattering on stones. Laughter carries down the street, punctuated by shouts and the calls of hawkers still lingering in the markets. The smell of roasting chestnuts drifts faintly through the open windows, mingling with the sharper scents of coal smoke and damp airs. The city prepares itself for its own long night, and the house is no different. You stand before the mirror, adjusting the shawl that rests across your shoulders. The woman who looks back at you is both familiar and strange. The fatigue of the morning still lingers in the lines around your eyes, yet it is softened now by candlelight, blurred by the faint touch of powder. You are not transformed, not truly, but reshaped. It is enough. The shadows outside deepens. The lamps glow brighter, their flames hazy in the fog. The hour is nearly upon you. From the parlor below comes the sound of chairs being shifted, glasses polished. The final touch is made to the stage where the evening will unfold. The quiet of the afternoon is gone, replaced by anticipation, by the faint quickening that always comes before the night begins. For a brief moment you pause, shawl drawn close, listening to the house breathe around you. It is alive now, not with laughter yet, but with readiness. Each woman in her rooms, each candle in its holder, each sound layered upon the next. Together they form the heartbeat of the house. Soon, the door will open. Guests will step inside, bringing with them the scents of tobacco, oil, and cold night air. Voices will rise, glasses will clink, and the carefully constructed performance will begin again. But for now, you stand in the stillness before it all, holding on to the last quiet breath of the day. Night is waiting. The door opens with a low creak, and the first voices of the evening drift inside. They arrive not all at once but gradually, one carriage stopping, then another. Footsteps echoing against the stone steps, the murmur of greetings at the threshold. A gust of cold night air slips into the hallways, carrying with it the damp, smoky scent of the London streets. The warmth of the house pushes back, enveloping each guest as they step across the threshold. The parlor begins to glow with life. Candles flicker in their holders, their flames swaying gently as the door opens and closes. The fire crackles, throwing out a steady warmth that seeps into the upholstery of the worn chairs. Shadows dance along the walls, softening the faded wallpaper, making the room seem grander than it is. In this light, reality blurs. The house, so wary in the daylight, transforms itself into something closer to welcoming, even elegant. Guests settle in, removing gloves, loosening scarves, brushing damp from their coats. Their voices rise in polite greeting, then relax into laughter. Tobacco smoke curls upward as pipes and cigars are lit, their pungent scent weaving itself into the air already heavy with perfume and firewoods. Glasses are filled with oil or gin, the liquid catching the candlelight in glints of amber. The women enter the parlor one by one, their movements deliberate but never hurried. Each has taken care with her appearance, and though the gowns may be worn and the ribbons reused, they carry themselves with a practiced grace. Smiles soften the wariness that lingers beneath powder and rouge. The night has begun, and with it, the performance. Each has mastered the art of conversation, of laughter, of presence. The piano begins to play, its melody halting at first, then finding its rhythm. A simple tune fills the room, not grand but cheerful enough to draw attention. It threads itself through the conversation, weaving a backdrop of sound against which the evening unfolds. One man taps his foot in time. Another hums along softly, his glass cradled in his hand. The music is not flawless, but it is enough. You take your place among them, shawl draped lightly over your shoulders, voice calm and welcoming. A guest approaches, his cheeks flushed from the cold, and perhaps from drink. His words stumble a little, but his smile is warm, eager for company. You greet him with ease, your voice steady, your expression gentle. The details of the exchange blur. The words are not the essence, but the presence, the sense of being seen, of being acknowledged. Around you, the parlor grows fuller. Conversations overlap, laughter rises and falls. Glasses clink softly against the wooden tables. The women guide the rhythm, steering talk when it falters, offering a smile when it lags. They know how to keep the evening alive, how to soften sharp edges, how to draw warmth from the dim glow of candles. Now and then, the madam passes through, her gaze sweeping the room with quiet precision. She checks that each guest is attended, that no quarrels broods, that the atmosphere remains balanced. Her presence is steady, like the ticking clock on the mantels, ensuring order beneath the surface of seeming ease. The hours slide forward, each marked not by clocks, but by the shifting tone of the rooms. Early laughter is bright, carried by fresh arrivals, but as the evening deepens, voices lower, movements slows, and the fire burns lower in its grate. Shadows lengthen again, curling into corners, softening faces. Candles burn down, their wax dripping steadily, a silent measure of time's passage. At intervals, women excuse themselves from the parlor, some returning, others not until much later. The rhythm is fluid, each absence and return woven seamlessly into the fabric of the nights. The guests notice little, the house breathes steadily, carrying itself forward without pause. Outside, the street is alive. Carriages clatter past, voices call out, music drifts from a nearby tavern. Yet inside, the world feels contained, as though the house is its own small universe. The fog pressing against the windows cannot penetrate, the city's clamour remains muted. Here, there is warmth, light, presence, temporary, fragile, but enough for now. You sit beside a guest, his voice low as he recounts some tale of business or travel. You nod, smile, offer small words when needed. The details slip past you like water, but the tone, the rhythm, the ease of it matters more. He leans back, comforted by your attention, soothed by the calm you project. The performance is not heavy, not forced, it is gentle, practiced, almost meditative. As the night stretches onward, the parlor grows softer. The fire dwindles, its flames sinking into glowing embers. Glasses are emptied and refilled more slowly, laughter quiets into murmurs. The piano falls silent, its final note hanging in the air before dissolving into the hum of voices. The women move more slowly now, conserving their strengths, yet still graceful, still steady. And so the night unfolds, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet weaving of presence, light, and sound. The house, worn yet alive, carries its rhythm forward, balancing between shadow and glow, between fatigue and endurance. Time passes, though it feels suspended, stretched thin by candlelight and conversation. Soon, the night will turn again toward morning. But for now, in this hour, the house is full of life, and you are part of it. One voice among many, one presence in the gentle fabric of the night. The night drifts onward, and with it, the energy of the house changes. Midnight has passed. The early hours of the evening, with their bursts of laughter, the clink of glasses, the bright chatter that filled the parlor, have softened into something slower, quieter, heavier. Time itself feels stretched thin, as though the candles burn not just wax, but the very minutes of the night. The fire in the parlor has sunk low, its embers glowing faintly, casting a reddish shimmer across the hearth. Shadows have lengthened, spreading like velvet across the walls and ceilings, softening every face, every gesture. The air is thick now, heavy with the mingled scents of tobacco, gin, coal smoke, and perfumes. Each breath carries the weight of hours already lived. Guests remain, though fewer than before. Some have slipped away, returning to their homes or their lodgings, their footsteps fading into the fog outside. Those who stay grow slower in their movements, their words less lively, their laughter subdued. They lean more heavily into chairs, voices dropping to murmurs. The cheer that opened the night has given way to a kind of wearied intimacy, where talk becomes slower, almost dreamlike. The women, too, move differently now. Earlier, they entered the parlor with practiced brightness, smiles softening the tiredness beneath. Now, their gestures are quieter, less adorned, though still graceful. They sit closer to the guests, speaking in softer tones, conserving their strength. The performance is no longer a glittering play, but a gentle accompaniment to the slow fading of the night. From upstairs, faint creaks sound as footsteps pass along the corridor. Some women have retired with guests, while others rest between calls, gathering what energy they can in brief, fragile moments of solitude. The house is not still, but its rhythm has slowed. It beats more deeply now, like a heart grown heavy, with fatigue yet determined to continue. You remain in the parlour, seated near the dim firelight. A man beside you speaks softly, his words blurred by drink. His story meanders, touching on memories, business, regrets. You listen with patience, nodding at intervals, offering a word when needed. His voice is steady, though tinged with melancholy, as though the lateness of the hour has loosened something within him. The quiet intimacy of the moment holds, requiring no more than presence. At the mantel, the clock ticks steadily. Its sound is faint but persistent, marking each passing minute with quiet authority. Each tick is a reminder that time moves onward, indifferent to weariness, indifferent to longing. It pulls the night toward morning, whether the house is ready or not. The candles burn low, their wax dripping steadily onto brass holders. A few flames sputter, threatening to die before catching again with a soft flare. Their light flickers across the room, giving faces a shifting, almost spectral quality. In this dimness, everyone seems softer, less defined. The masks worn earlier in the night blurs, revealing something closer to truth. From the kitchen drifts the faint smell of broth warming on the stove. The housekeeper, still awake, tends to her quiet work. She moves with care, her steps slow, her hands steady. She has lived through countless nights like this, knows well the rhythm of hours after midnight. Her presence is unseen but essential, a steady anchor against the fatigue that threatens to unravel the house. Outside, London continues, though more faintly. Carriages still rattle past, but their numbers dwindle. The cries of vendors and street calls have faded, replaced by the occasional echo of footsteps or the bark of a stray dog. The fog presses close to the windows, muffling the city's sounds, making the house feel more enclosed, as though wrapped in its own cocoon of smoke and candlelight. You shift slightly in your chair, feeling the weight of the hours in your shoulders, your back. The shawl around you offers little warmth now, but the fire, faint as it is, holds enough heat to soften the chill. Your eyes grow heavy, though you keep them open, your attention drifting between the man's words and the steady tick of the clock. The night asks for endurance, but it also soothes with its slowness, its quiet, its soft unraveling. A woman across the room lets out a gentle laugh, though it is quiet, almost private, as though meant only for the man beside her. The sound lingers for a moment, then fades, leaving the hush to settle once more. Every gesture, every word in these hours feels slower, softer, as though wrapped in layers of velvet shadow. Time passes. The clock ticks, the fire glows. Voices rise and fall in quiet rhythm. The house breathes on, heavy but steady, carrying itself through these late hours as it has through countless others. The night unfolds not with grandeur now, but with endurance, with the gentle persistence of those who remain awake while the rest of the city sleeps. After midnight, the world feels different, closer, quieter, softened by shadow, and within it, the house continues, holding its wary heartbeat steady until morning comes to claim it once again. The hours after midnight are not measured by clocks, but by quiet rhythms. The soft inhale and exhale of those sleepings, the occasional creak of floorboards, the gentle tap of a chair being shifted, the steady murmur of a voice carried low. In the brothels, the night has begun to fade, not into dawn yet, but into a softer, slower tempo. Time itself feels less precise, more malleable, stretching and bending in the dim candlelight. The parlour is nearly empty now. A few guests linger, their postures heavier, voices lower, laughter no longer bright but muted by exhaustion. The fire has burned down to glowing embers, sending up a soft heat that barely warms the rooms. Candles flicker gently, their flames casting long, wavering shadows on the worn wallpaper, the chairs, the women who remain. Even the air itself feels thick and drowsy, carrying the sense of smoke, perfume, and a hint of lingering spirits. The women move quietly, their footsteps careful, their gestures slower than before. Each carries the weight of hours already spent performing, listening, soothing, smiling. Yet, despite fatigue, there is a measured grace to their movements. They know these hours are delicate, a time when patience and presence matter more than charm or exuberance. A soft word, a steady hand, a calm smile, these small gestures maintain the fragile equilibrium of the fading night. From the staircase, faint creaks sound as someone rises from a room. A shawl is adjusted, a ribbon retied, a mirror checked one last time. The preparation is subtle now, not for grandeur but for endurance. For the steady passage through these last hours before the early morning claims the city. In the kitchen, the housekeeper moves like a shadow, clearing dishes, tidying, ensuring the space is ready for the few lingering guests and the morning to come. Her motions are practiced, precise, almost meditative. She has performed these routines countless times, and her quiet diligence steadies the house as surely as any fire or candles. The remaining guests lean into chairs, their bodies heavy, their attention drifting. Conversation slows, becomes intermittent, punctuated by long pauses. Eyes flicker toward the dim fire, then back to faces that seem blurred in candlelight. The men, too, carry fatigue now, the energy that drew them to the house earlier replaced by a quieter longing for rest, for release, for the gentle retreat that sleep allows. You move through the parlor like a soft current, checking in with those still awake. A hand on a shoulder, a nod, a whispered question, each gesture minimal, yet effective. The presence of care is often more powerful than words in these hours. Even those too tired to speak notice it, and it comforts them, pulling them gently into a quieter state of being. The shadows stretch long across the walls, curling and bending as the candle flames flicker. Every object, the mantel, the chairs, the worn floorboards, takes on a softer, stranger aspect, its edges blurred. The house itself seems older, heavier, wiser, as though it has gathered centuries of whispered secrets, lost hopes and fleeting joys, carrying them now into these fading hours. Outside, the city has quieted. The clatter of carriages is distant and sparse. Street vendors no longer call. The fog hangs low, swallowing the remaining echoes of life in its damp embrace. From this vantage, inside the house, the world feels contained, as though the walls hold back the pressing weight of London's restlessness. The dim lamplight outside glimmers faintly through the windows, adding a silvery veil to the already soft scenes. The women gather briefly near the hearth, exchanging a few whispered words before returning to their positions. Their faces are softened by fatigue, their smiles, though gentle, carry the weight of the day and the night. Each has given what they could to the house, to its guests, to the quiet performance that is survival. Now in these fading hours, they conserve their energy, gathering themselves for the final stretch until morning light. You take a moment to sit, allowing your hands to rest in your lap. The shawl across your shoulders is warm against the chill of the room, the faint glow of embers soothing your eyes. The world outside has dimmed, leaving the house as a fragile island of warmth, quiet, and presence. Each breath you take echoes softly in the stillness, a reminder that though the night fades, it remains. A few remaining voices drift from the back rooms, low and hushed, carrying half-finished thoughts, confessions too small for daylight, whispers of longing and murmurs of relief. You listen without judgment, letting the sounds wash over you. They are part of the rhythms, the pulse of the house, as vital as the fire, the chairs, the floorboards beneath your feet. The clock ticks faintly in the background, its sound barely audible over the settling quiet. Time continues its relentless march, though in these hours it feels slower, more forgiving. The night is ending, but gently, without rush. Every movement, every sound, every breath is softened by the lingering shadow of midnight, and in this soft, suspended moment, the house holds itself together. It is heavy with fatigue, layered with smoke and perfumes, alive with memory and endurance. Fading hours, delicate as a whisper, stretch forward toward the approaching dawn. Each heartbeat, each slow exhale, carries the house and all within it steadily toward morning, toward light, toward rest. The first light of morning in London is delicate, almost shy. It begins as a soft grey haze over the rooftops, barely brighter than the lingering shadows of night. The fog that clung to the streets slowly lifts, revealing the blackened chimneys, the slick cobblestones, and the faint outlines of the city's bustling life preparing to stir. It is a quiet light, pale and gentle, brushing the edges of the windows and diffusing across the parlour with a fragile grace. Inside the house, the night still lingers in the corners. Candles gutter low in their holders, casting fading shadows against the walls. The fire, reduced to smouldering embers, glows faintly, offering the last trace of warmth from the long night. Smoke curls lazily upward, twisting in the early light, carrying with it the scent of coal, perfume, and the faint undertone of wax and ash. The house exhales softly, as though aware that the long vigil of the night has ended. A few guests remain, their forms blurred in the dim morning haze. Their voices are subdued, muted by fatigue and the awareness that daylight will soon claim them. A chair creaks as one shifts slightly. Another mutters a farewell too quiet to be caught by anyone but the attentive women who move among them. The ritual of departure has begun, slow and unhurried, marked by quiet gestures and gentle guidance. The women, too, have adjusted to the approaching day. Their movements are calm, unhurried, each step deliberate. Some gather the last of the candles, extinguishing the flames one by one, careful not to disturb those still asleep or resting. Others begin the lighter chores, clearing glasses, straightening chairs, dusting the small signs of the night away. The house transitions seamlessly from night to morning, carrying with it a rhythm that has been rehearsed countless times yet never feels entirely routine. You stand near the hearths, shawl drawn across your shoulders, observing the subtle changes. The night has been long, filled with laughter, conversations, and gentle performance, but it has left its traces in the form of soft shadows, lingering scents, and a quiet fatigue that rests upon the house like a second skin. The first light reveals these traces, softening them, highlighting the endurance that carried everyone through the hours. Outside, the city wakes with a gentle hum. A distant cart rattles over cobblestones, a newsboy shouts headlines from a few streets away, a dog barks somewhere beyond the mists. The sounds are faint, softened by the thick walls of the house, yet they signal the day's inevitable advance. Life resumes its forward motions, indifferent to the small universe contained within the brothel. The parlour, though quiet now, still holds the warmth of the night. Glasses are emptied and stacked carefully, chairs nudged back into place, ribbons straightened, shawls folded. Every object carries the imprint of hours lived within its space, as though the memory of night lingers in the very wood and fabrics. The women move among these traces with quiet respect, restoring order without erasing the human presence that has animated the rooms. You sit briefly in a chair, letting the soft grey light wash over you. The shawl is still snug across your shoulders, the warmth of the embers fading into the cool morning air. You breathe slowly, feeling the tension of the night lifts, replaced by a calm awareness that the day has arrived, bringing both relief and the promise of work ahead. Some of the women begin their morning routines in earnest. Hair is brushed, powder reapplied lightly to soften shadows under tired eyes, and simple breakfasts are prepared in the small kitchen. A faint scent of porridge and tea drifts upwards, mingling with the lingering fragrance of rosewater and lavender. Each small action is a return to routines, a grounding after the ephemeral performance of the night. Guests depart one by one, stepping into the grey mornings. their faces flushed with cold, their voices low with gratitude or quiet farewells. Some glance back at the house with curiosity or lingering admiration, but most are already absorbed by the wider city beyond its walls. With each departure, the house grows quieter, returning to a softer rhythm that allows the women to breathe, to rest, and to prepare for whatever the day may hold. The first light strengthens, gradually, pale and steady, touching the furniture, the floorboards, and the women moving softly through the rooms. It does not harshly illuminate but gently reveals, allowing the last vestiges of the night to fade into memory. The soft glow brings with it a sense of continuity, a reminder that night and day exist in constant dialogue, each shaping the other in subtle, persistent ways. You rise, moving toward the windows, letting the grey light spill over your hands and face. For a brief moment, you pause, feeling the stillness, the calm that comes in the fragile gap between night and full morning. Outside, life carries on. Inside, the house breathes quietly, steady, resilient. The long hours of the night have passed, leaving behind traces of endurance, warmth, and subtle grace. And in this first light, the house, the women, the lingering shadows, and the faint warmth of embers are all held together, softly, tenderly, ready to face the day, yet carrying the memory of the night within them. Morning has fully arrived now, spreading its pale light across London like a thin veil. The fog has lifted almost entirely, leaving behind streets slick with overnight moisture, cobblestones glinting faintly in the weak suns. The air carries the mixed scents of coal, damp earth, and baking bread from the nearby bakeries. The city is awake, breathing, moving, and the brothel within it feels like a small, contained world poised delicately between night and day. Inside, the house adjusts to this new rhythm. The embers in the hearth have cooled, leaving behind a gentle warmth that lingers like a memory. Candles have been extinguished, leaving the rooms bathed solely in the muted grey of morning light. The parlour, which had carried the life and energy of the previous night, now stands quiet, neat, and almost solemn, as if honouring the hours it has just hosted. The women move with careful purpose. Some rise from their small beds, stretching out the stiffness of the night's sleep, careful not to disturb those still resting. Shawls are adjusted, hair brushed and pinned. Simple breakfasts prepared in the kitchen. The rituals of morning are soft, deliberate, each gesture easing the transition from the lingering intensity of night to the quieter demands of day. You sit near the window for a moment, observing the street beyond. Early vendors begin to call, their voices high and sharp against the muted cityscapes. The clip-clop of horses' hooves grows more frequent, carts rattle over the stones, and the occasional shout of a passerby pierces the air. Life carries on outside these walls, moving swiftly, indifferent to the small, intricate world contained within. Inside, however, there is stillness. The house seems to breathe in rhythm with its inhabitants, holding a measured cadence that allows everyone a moment to gather themselves. Every chair, every table, every worn floorboard carries traces of the night, traces of laughter, conversation, labor, endurance. Yet these remnants are subtle, gentle, almost imperceptible, like the aftertaste of a dream upon waking. Breakfast is simple but sufficient. Porridge, thin and warm, carries the faint aroma of oats and milk, the steam curling upward in lazy spirals. Tea steeps slowly in chipped cups, its gentle bitterness sharpening senses dulled by night. The women sit together briefly, eating in quiet companionships. The shared silence soothing, comforting, a soft buffer against the day's inevitable demands. Words are few, exchanged sparingly, each measured and deliberate, respecting the fragility of the moment. The housekeeper moves steadily through the rooms, clearing the remnants of night, tidying where needed, preparing the house for its daytime quiet. She does not rush, her steps are deliberate, precise. Each action is both practical and soothing, a rhythm that grounds the women and maintains the fragile equilibrium of the households. Her presence is constant, reassuring, almost invisible in its steadiness. You rise, folding your shawl neatly before placing it aside. Movement feels heavier in the daylight, the body remembering the hours already endured. Yet there is a quiet satisfaction in this, a small sense of accomplishment. The night has passed, survived, and now the day awaits, bringing with it new rhythms, new tasks, and the promise of rest before another evening begins. The parlor, once alive with energy, now feels like a sanctuary. Chairs are straightened, floors swept, and every surface cleared of the previous night's remnants. The faint aroma of coal smoke lingers, mixing with the faint floral notes from perfumes long since applied. The house itself seems to exhale, carrying the memory of laughter, conversation and labor into the corners, softening every shadow with the gentle, steady presence of morning light. Outside, London pulses with life. The sounds of street vendors, horses, and distant traffic swell, filling the air with movement and sound. Inside, the house exists in contrast, slower, gentler, holding itself in quiet readiness. It is a space both separate from and intertwined with the city, a place where the passage of night leaves traces, not just in the rooms, but in the bodies and minds of those who dwell here. The women finish breakfast, gathering dishes and placing them carefully to dry. They exchange a few quiet words, smiles soft, gestures minimal. There is no urgency yet, only the gentle momentum of day beginning. Outside, the streets are brighter, more defined, and the fog is nearly gone, revealing the city in sharp lines of brick, cobblestone, and chimney smoke. Inside, the softer edges remains, a sanctuary shaped by night and preserved by care. You take a final glance around the room, noting the faint signs of endurance. A chair slightly askew, a ribbon lying on the floor, a shawl draped over a backrest. Each tells a story of the hours just past, of laughter and conversation, of labor and quiet performance. They are reminders of resilience, of the subtle, persistent work of surviving night after night. And in this moment, as the first light fills the rooms and soft shadows fade, the house holds itself in balance. The day awaits beyond the doors and windows, but inside, the women, the warmth, and the quiet continues. For now, this is enough. A fragile, gentle pause before the world resumes its ceaseless motion. The day stretches slowly into afternoons, and the house begins to prepare itself once more for the familiar rhythm of night. Sunlight filters through the tall windows, warm yet muted, tracing soft patterns across the worn floorboards. Shadows shift gently as clouds pass overhead, the light catching the curves of chairs, the folds of shawls, and the faded wallpaper in a quiet, fleeting dance. London beyond the walls is awake, alive with noise, with commerce, with the clatter of life moving at its usual, unrelenting pace. Inside, the house holds itself steady. Breakfast has been cleared, dishes washed and stacked neatly, and the women have tended to small chores, tidying rooms, mending fabric, and arranging the parlors. The air carries the scent of coal faintly smoked from the fire, and the lingering trace of rosewater and lavender. Each corner seems imbued with the memory of the previous night, the echoes of conversation, the softness of laughter, the delicate weight of human presence. As the afternoon wanes, a subtle tension begins to settle in. It is not worry, but preparations, the quiet alertness that precedes the return of evening. The women move with calm efficiency, ensuring the rooms are ready, the firewood stacked, the candles positioned. Shawls are smoothed, ribbons checked, and mirrors glanced into with gentle care. Each action, though small, is part of a larger pattern, a choreography learned over years, repeated nightly with variations only the house itself could record. You walk slowly through the parlor, allowing your eyes to rest on familiar objects, the worn armchair near the fireplace, its upholstery softened by countless nights, the mantel clock ticking steadily, the small table with its chipped ceramic pitcher and basins, still holding a faint memory of ice and cold water from months past. Each item holds a story, a fragment of countless evenings and mornings, a witness to the delicate balance of survival and routine. The fire is coaxed back to life, embers stirred, flames rising slowly. Candles are lit one by one, their glow steady, throwing long, flickering shadows across walls and ceilings. The dim light transforms the rooms, softening edges, reshaping familiar furniture into something almost tender, almost sacred. The house itself seems to breathe, anticipating the footsteps that will soon echo through its halls, the voices that will fill its spaces once more. Outside, the city begins to change. Carriages clatter over the cobblestones with increasing frequency, distant voices rise and fall, and the air grows cooler as the sun lowers in the sky. The fog of the morning has retreated entirely, but a different kind of mist settles along the streets. A smoky haze from chimneys, mingling with the smells of taverns and bakeries. It is the scent of London preparing for evening, a backdrop to the quiet drama unfolding inside. The women gather, final touches made to hairs, gowns and accessories. Each movement is deliberate but unhurried, a rhythm that soothes rather than stresses. Powder is applied lightly to soften shadows, ribbons tied with care, shawls adjusted to drape elegantly across shoulders. There is a quiet joy in these preparations, a small pride in knowing that though the day has been long, the night will bring new opportunity, new life, and a chance to perform the delicate dance of presence and care once more. Guests begin to arrive, their footsteps light but purposeful on the stone steps outside. The door opens with a soft creak, admitting the first arrivals and a whisper of cold air. The women step into the parlor with practiced grace, their faces gentle, their smiles steady, their presence both welcoming and reassuring. The house, once quiet and reflective, now hums with life again, a delicate symphony of human activity woven into its very walls. Voices rise and fall in measured cadence. Laughter is soft but deliberate, conversation flowing like a gentle current. Glasses are filled and raised, the amber of ale or gin catching the flickering candlelights. Music begins, tentative at first. A piano note here, a hum there, then grows into a gentle rhythm that threads through the rooms, connecting every voice, every gesture, every heart. You move among the guests, offering presents, listening with patience, responding with calm assurance. Every gesture is small, yet significant. Each smile, each words, each nod contributes to the balance of the evening, the steady hum of life within the house. The night, once again, begins its slow, deliberate unfolding, carrying with it both challenge and comfort. The shadows lengthen as the room grows darker, the city outside deepening into evening. The fire crackles steadily, its glow warm against the chill pressing in from the streets. Candles flicker, softening faces and casting gentle light across the room. The house moves with the night, alive with its rhythms, its memories, its care and its enduring heartbeat. And so the cycle continues. The day fades, the evening arrives, and the house stands ready, holding its quiet universe in balance. Each woman, each guest, each object contributes to this fragile harmony, sustaining the rhythm of life within. You pause, taking in the room, the soft light, the gentle shadows, and the warmth that flows through it all. Evening again, familiar and steady, unfolds like a slow sigh. The house, the women's, the lingering echoes of night and day, they continue unbroken, carrying with them the resilience and quiet grace that have always defined them. And in that delicate balance, there is a strange kind of peace, a soothing certainty, a gentle lullaby for anyone who pauses long enough to notice.